Sarah, another for Real-Isode. I loved our question from last week. And if you didn't answer our question of what TV shows you watched when you were growing up, I would love for the audience to share their answers if you haven't already. But you have another question for us today. So I would love if you would go ahead and tell us what is it for today.
All right. I do have a new question. And again, this is something I think our answers will probably be different. But what is something that you think everyone should try once? And this can be something that maybe you have tried once. What do you think something everyone at one point in their lives, they should try this one thing?
Do you have an answer?
I thought about this a little bit and I think I do have an answer. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
So when I was living in Flagstaff, this was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, Shannon, my sister, and I, we hit one January. You hit, January 1st, New Year's resolution. She's like, hey, this year, like every month, let's do something we've never done before. Like, let's do this for a whole year. Now, of course, we only did this for 2 months and then we gave up. But for those 2 months, the first thing we did was like January, we were like, well, okay, well, what's like a sport we've never done? So we went to a thrift store and we got, tennis rackets and a couple of balls and we went out to a tennis court and we like tried playing tennis and it was super fun. But then the next month it was my turn to pick. And so I was just scanning this list of like events in town. And there was a night that was like, oh, come join improv. And so I called Shannon and I was like, Shannon, we're doing improv and it's tonight. So I picked her up. And it was like maybe 7:00 at night and we're driving through town. The streets are pretty empty. And every time we hit a stoplight, every time we hit a red light, Shannon's like, just turn around. Just turn around. We don't have to go. We don't have to do this. Because we were both just like nervous out of our minds.
There's nothing more scary.
I know. And I think seriously, I was like, I had sweat down to my rib cage by the time we showed up because I was just so nervous. And I had done, theater growing up, but improv was never my thing. So we go into this building and it's a building that is sort of a multi-use arts building. So from the ceiling, there's like these hanging silks that people do like sky dancing from. And we're just like, where are we? And then there's a very small group, maybe 14 or 15 people. And they're already doing some really like super weird theater exercise in the corner. And they clearly all know each other. And Shannon and I do not know any of them. So we walk over and this guy, he's basically the lead guy. He's like, hey, I'm Garrison. Welcome to improv. And we're like, hi, Garrison. So then he's like, all right, here's what we're going to do first. And it's sort of this like, exercise where he's like, okay, I'm going to send 2 people out up front and you create a scene. And then at some point I'm going to say tag and then someone runs out and tags somebody else for the audience and you pick up where they left off. So by the time
very stressful.
Now, anyone who has done improv knows like scenes basically by their nature, because you're trying to rapidly think of, they just escalate far too quickly into these impossible scenarios. So I think by the time that Shannon, my sister, got tagged up there, she was Steve Irwin pretending to wrestle this other guy who was an alligator. Like that's the situation we were in. It was just the craziest night. I have never laughed so hard in my life. And we left and we were like, we should do improv like on a regular basis. It was so much fun, but it was fun because we walked out of there feeling like we just did something we never, ever, ever would have done.
Yeah.
And throwing yourself so far out of your comfort zone, it feels so awful on the front half and so wonderful on the back half because you're just so proud of yourself. So I would say it doesn't have to be improv, but just something that you're like, never in a million years would I do that thing. Go do that thing just once, just one time. I promise you won't regret it.
That is so true. And I've done quite a lot of those situations over the last year and not quite to that extreme, but doing things similar to that. And actually, this will have already happened when this comes out. You don't know this, but as of us recording this, Sarah, in a few days, I'm going to run the Bronx 10 mile wearing a skirt made of trash. And
what?
Yeah, I'm going to write climate facts on my arms and legs.
Oh my gosh.
And that feels so intimidating and scary, but it'll be interesting to hear this when this comes out, how I feel about it. But that feels very vulnerable to do that. I was going to
say, I think you could potentially apply for a fastest 10 mile in a activist costume.
I'm not going to run that fast because I don't know how well this is going to hold up. But that's funny. Yeah. Yes.
I was going to say you might end up just like pieces of trash just like flying off, which is the opposite of the message.
Yes. So I will collect them if they fall off. But yeah, I absolutely agree that like it's so empowering when you do things like that. What comes to mind to me like that is when I did about a year ago, actually, my friend Elizabeth and I were in Venice Beach, and there was a drum circle, and we got in the middle of the drum circle and danced in front of like 75 people.
Oh,
and it was
wow.
such a like scary, like it was intimidating just because all these people are like, you're in the middle, they're looking at you. And granted, half of them are probably like high on something, so they weren't really.
But even people who, like, you don't know these people. It's like you're never going to see them again.
Yes.
So what does it matter?
And
That's also why. Have you ever done karaoke, Tina?
No, I have not. That is on my like list to do of like scary things to do.
Yes.
Improv is like maybe a step too far for me.
Yes.
I don't know, but
I would say karaoke it's a soft landing into the world. And it's also like, I had, again, one experience with karaoke, and it was hilarious because halfway through my song, my friend who had had a little bit too much to drink, she just walks right up to me in the middle of the song. She's like, my dress is unzipped. Can you zip my dress? And I was just like, okay, so this is clearly not, I'm not going to be scouted for an album, you know?
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, and that's why, like, I've been to karaoke places recently with a former friend who loves karaoke, but he had an incredible, like, the best voice I've ever myself heard. And so I was like, I can't follow that. So it always just put me off to do it. But yes, that is on my list. But my answer is going to be different. I actually think I would say this is also on my lifetime bucket list. And I'd be curious if this is on yours. I want to do, and I think maybe not to this extreme, but I want to do one of those silent retreats that's like 10 days long. At some point in my life. But I don't think necessarily everyone has to do a 10-day retreat, but like at least a day or like some kind of thing where you don't talk, where you're with yourself. It doesn't have to be as extreme as a 10-day solo retreat or where you sit and just think or sit like nothing for 10 hours a day, or like an alone where you go into the woods, but something like that I think would be good for all of us to like have that time by yourself out in nature.
I had an athlete that I coached. She went on, I think it was a 5-day silent retreat. And she said by the end that there was every single day, like at lunchtime, she would go sit at this table. And there was this one man who always ate lunch at like the same time. And she's like, without saying a single word, I got to know that man so well. It's like we would sit there and make eye contact throughout this meal, and we would share this meal together. And she's like, literally on the last day, she sat down with her lunch and looked at him, and he was crying. And I was just like, that is so crazy and so beautiful. Yeah. I think it'd be really, as our listeners could tell, like I'm a talkative person. That'd be a stretch, but I would like to give that a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. Like that is a long time. And the 10-day ones, it is literally you wake up at like, I think 4 a.m. You have, I can't remember if you eat straight away. I think maybe you have like half an hour of exercise, like walking, something gentle. And then you sit down till lunchtime, or you get like one meal a day. You sit the whole day. Like you don't like how much that would ache, how much you'd want to move. Like, and then you go to bed and you wake up and do the same thing again. Like, I mean, that seems so cool. But yes, that is what I think my answer is. That was a good question. So thank you for that one. And listeners, we would love to hear your answers if you have anything different, or if you've done either of those two things, we would love to hear from you. Thank you, Sarah. We'll see you next time.